Hey everyone, and welcome to my review of Tales of Arise. All the gameplay you'll see in this video was captured on a PlayStation 5 console, and I won't be showing any bosses or anything from after the first couple of hours, so don't worry about spoilers. One thing I absolutely have to mention at the start of this video is that I was not able to get a review code for this game. Due to the size of my channel, sometimes I get codes and sometimes I don't. The only reason that I was able to get this game for review is due to my supporters on Patreon. Now, regular viewers of this channel will probably know that I rarely promote my Patreon, but in this case I just have to mention it because without it I simply wouldn't have been able to afford this game. Don't get me wrong, I have money, I do get by, but having those two supporters, people that I've never met by the way, just allowed me that little bit of extra cash to afford the game, so infinite thanks to the both of you for that. John, thank you very much, and Dave, many thanks to you as well. So with that in mind, if you want to help support the channel as it grows, all the links you'll need are in the video description down below. And if you're new here, we're less than 100 subs away from that 1000 subscriber milestone, so please do consider subscribing today. Now then, let's get on to the review. First, I'll give you all the info you need to know about the game, and then I'll go into my positive and negative opinions. After that, we'll close out the video with a conclusion and a recommendation section. So, what is Tales of Arise? Well, it's the latest game in a long-running RPG series. There's actually been quite a few Tales games over the years, including fan favorites such as Tales of Symphonia, Tales of Vesperia, and Tales of Berseria, the latter of which was released in 2016, making it a 5-year gap between that game and the brand new Tales of Arise. The new game is somewhat of a departure from the series standards, but like most of the games in the series, they're all completely unrelated to each other and generally happen in their own world and with their own unique characters. So don't worry if you've never played one of these titles before, you can jump right in and you won't have missed anything. As I mentioned earlier, Tales of Arise is an RPG, and as you play through it, you'll be following a long and detailed narrative. I won't be spoiling any of the game's main plot, bosses, or anything like that, but when you first start the game up, the opening cutscene tells you the story of the two worlds named Dana and Rena. Dana is a medieval world with a generally peaceful and happy population who saw the other world, Rena, which loomed over them as some sort of paradise, a place where all the souls of the people who died on Dana would eventually rest. However, one day, without any warning, a huge fleet of spaceships and silver knights laid waste to Dana and enslaved its people. And so, that world that the people of Dana looked at for comfort was revealed to be a very advanced race of humans who took over their entire planet virtually overnight. 300 years later is when our story starts. You play as a character known initially as Iron Mask for obvious reasons. It's not exactly a secret to say that eventually his mask is broken and he's revealed to be named Alphen. Other than that though, he knows nothing of his past and has a strange ability to feel no pain. This doesn't mean he can't be hurt though. His physical body can be damaged and it can be broken. He just lacks the ability to feel it. After a short while, you'll run into the other main character of the game, Shion, who at first looks very innocent but has the nasty ability to give a painful magical shock to anyone who touches her. The opening few hours of the game are spent mostly with these two characters, and you slowly start to learn more and more about the world around you, the situation you're both in, and the other characters' motivations. The story is played and told in a relatively linear fashion because you're always being gently pushed towards the next goal. However, you do have the option of going back to any area that you've already visited via fast travel. You can explore, look for treasure, farm materials, and pick up various side quests for extra items and money. The gameplay is essentially split into two parts: the overworld that you move around most of the time while exploring, and the battle screen which you enter when you collide with an enemy in the overworld. When a battle starts, you'll enter a small combat arena with full control of your character and your attacks. The battles in this game are not turn-based and they play out much more like an action RPG, with you being able to attack whenever you want, activate special abilities known as astral arts, and dodge when necessary. There are some other things you can do in combat, such as calling in your party members to perform boost attacks. Boost attacks are for specific combat situations. You'll eventually gain various party members with different boost attacks, but for example, if an enemy has some kind of shield or armor, you can use a certain boost attack to punch through it and open them up for more damage. There's also some boost attacks that can interrupt enemy spells, and some that are highly effective against airborne enemies. Also, as you land hits on an enemy, a small blue diamond will gradually fill up, and when it's full you can unleash a powerful super attack known as a boost strike. These special attacks vary visually based on who's executing it, but they generally all do the same thing. You can, if you want to, highly customize which attacks and abilities your party members use and how often in the detailed strategy menus. If you don't feel like you always want to play as Alphen, you can switch which member of the team is the party leader. And when you do, you'll be personally controlling that character while you explore and during battles. You can also change characters mid-fight by holding down L1 and using the D-pad. During a normal battle, and assuming your controls are set to default, you'll be performing the standard attack combo with the R1 button and dodging with the R2 button. The dodges in this game have that perfect dodge mechanic that you've no doubt seen in many action games, where time will slow down and allow you a short window to perform a counterattack. You can jump using circle, and the other 3 face buttons are used for your astral arts, which you can assign to any button you like after you've unlocked them on the skill panel. The skill panel is essentially just a skill tree. Each playable character has one, and you can unlock skills by spending SP or skill points. These points can be gained by simply completing battles or by finishing quests. The skills themselves range from things like new astral arts, to stat boosts, to passive bonuses, and even more besides. The party of characters that you control have a collective resource known as CP, which is shared by everyone in the group. It has a few uses, but generally in battle it's reserved for healing arts and restorative abilities. You can use it outside of battle while exploring to help people in need or to break down certain barriers to access rare items and treasure. It can be regenerated relatively easily by using items or by resting for the night at a camp or at an inn. The game's world is split up into zones with a short loading screen in between each. It's handled in the same way as the Borderlands series, for example. Again, I won't be spoiling anything here that isn't from the beginning of the game or found in the demo, but you'll see a few different biomes including deserts, forests, and snowy mountains. Each of the territories serves as a place for the main story to unfold before moving you on to the next, and each area has its own inn to rest at, a store, a blacksmith, hidden loot to find, side quests to complete, and more. While you're exploring these areas, you'll be able to gather various materials for both crafting and cooking. You can find materials of different quality to mine, which will allow you to craft accessories. These accessories can be equipped to each character to provide some passive bonuses, things like 15% more attack power or plus 20 to resistance, for example. You'll also discover cooking ingredients like apples or wheat that can be used to cook food when you rest at a camp. Like in most games, cooking food at a camp will give your party various bonuses for a set amount of real-world time. In order to craft new weapons for your characters, you'll generally need to take down enemies to get the materials needed, but some armor and weapons can be found in hidden chests or given as rewards for completing quests. The armor and weapons in the game all have stats, as you might imagine, but you'll usually just be equipping the strongest piece. However, you can go into the outfit section of the menus, which allows you to change the item's appearance without affecting its stats, sort of like a cosmetic skin. In this menu, you'll also find that you can equip up to 2 attachments per character. These attachments are basically just vanity items like rabbit ears, sunglasses, or a cat's tail, for example. You'll be able to unlock these by finding owls which are hidden throughout the game. Most of the time you'll be hearing the owls before you see them, but when you do find one, just interact with it and it'll unlock the item it's wearing. A little way into the game, you'll also unlock a small farm that allows you to raise different types of animals for meat that you can then cook with. You'll also get the ability to catch fish later on, which again is used in cooking and as a type of collection. At various stages of the game, the characters in your party can interact and talk with each other in these comic book style panels. Whenever a scene like this is available to be viewed, there'll be a little prompt in the bottom right corner of the screen letting you know to press R1 to view it. There are a lot of these present throughout the game, but they are completely optional to view. I think they're just there to add more story and depth to the characters for those that want it. Performance-wise, the game actually has 2 modes to choose from, a graphics mode that displays the game in 4K at the cost of frame rate, and a performance mode that lowers the resolution but maintains a smooth 60 FPS. There's also a choice of Japanese or English spoken dialogue for those that want it, and a whole host of other options which include everything you might expect and more. There really is a lot to this game, but I think by this point you should have a pretty good idea of what it's about, so let's move into the personal opinion section, starting with the positives. Now, I have to say, this may be a first for my channel. I absolutely adore this game, and I've been literally looking for something negative to add to this review, and I simply can't find anything. I mean, there is one thing that I think I can mention, but it's not really a problem with the game itself. But anyway, we'll get to that. I just love so many things about this game, and instead of reeling off every little thing, I'm just going to share some of the big things that really stood out to me. So firstly, the story. I don't know if it's because I'm getting older or, I don't know, perhaps due to some of the health issues I've dealt with in my life, I really don't know, but some stories seem to really stick with me these days, especially when they talk about heavy issues, and this game does talk about some pretty serious stuff, and it's quite a bit darker than its bright colours would suggest to you. The game deals with things like loss, sacrifice, death, and even slavery, and from the very first cutscene, I was just hooked into it. I just wanted to move forward and see everything in the story. I played using the English dub, and I thought that the voice actors did a very good job indeed. For me, it's probably one of the best English dubs I've ever heard in anything, quite frankly. The characters' emotions, motivations, and visual design all made sense, and everything just kind of clicked where I felt it should. The full-on anime opening that the game treats you to was also, in my opinion, absolutely brilliant, and all the major in-game cutscenes were animated so well and so dynamically. I honestly really liked every character I met, and I genuinely cared for them because I just felt that they were written so well. I liked virtually everything this game had to offer, and now obviously I can't guarantee that you'll be as blown away by this game as I was, but I'll tell you right now, I don't think this is just one of my favourite RPGs of all time. I would actually go as far as to say that I think this may actually be one of my favourite games of all time, period. I like it that much. And another thing that really stood out to me was its visual presentation. The game just kind of oozes quality, and I can definitely tell that it's had a lot of money thrown at it and had a lot of talented people creating it. It looks almost like a watercolor painting come to life, and every single direction I looked in gave me yet another beautiful bit of scenery to admire. Again, for me, this may be one of the best looking games I've ever played in my entire life, and just existing in this game's world felt like some sort of privilege. It's kind of hard to explain, but almost like I should count my blessings that I was allowed to be there. The artistry on display here is, in my opinion, nothing short of inspiring. I do think it's important to note that it's actually the artistic style and the creativity of the designs that I love, not the raw graphical power and detail, in the sense that they aren't going for highly detailed realism, and the fact that they can take liberties with certain aspects of it, in much the same way as Borderlands and Call of Duty are both first-person shooters, but their artistic direction couldn't be further apart. And lastly, in this section, I want to talk about the combat system. I found it to just be really fun and enjoyable, very satisfying. Every hit felt impactful and chunky with some really good visual and audio feedback. The fact that I was playing this on a PS5 did help with the combat, mainly because I was able to get in and out of battles very quickly for a more seamless experience. I actually wanted to fight everything. I ran into battles constantly, and not just to farm materials or XP. I literally found it so fun that I just kept doing it. I will say though, having R1 as attack and R2 as dodge was a little odd at first, but after about, 10 to 15 minutes I kind of got used to it and it became second nature. I enjoyed unlocking the various astral arts and testing them out to see which ones I liked best, and using them in battle felt very fluid and they all combo together quite nicely. It's also really cool to bring in the other party members for various types of assistance, like breaking through the shields or targeting enemies in the air. These attacks not only look cool and are easy to pull off, but they're also useful as well. The boost strikes that usually occur towards the end of a fight are also really cool to look at. There's just so much going on in each one animation-wise, but they ran super smooth at 60 FPS, and despite being really fast, you can easily see what's happening. It just looks great to me. And so as I said, there really isn't anything negative to talk about here, at least for my tastes and my experience with this game, but let me quickly mention that one thing that I alluded to earlier. This game launched with quite a lot of small DLC microtransactions, and I know some people don't care about it, and that's fine. That's absolutely fine. I, however, do care about it, and granted it's only cosmetic stuff and time savers, in a single player game nonetheless, but it still doesn't sit right with me. I mean, if the game sold incredibly well, and they decided to make some sort of expansion with new areas to explore, new bosses, new characters, some extra story stuff, and perhaps some costumes or cosmetic items within that expansion, then release it 6 months after launch, okay, sure, I would accept that with absolutely no problem. But on day one, to just create some costumes and sell them separately just isn't right to me. Why not just add them into the game as unlockables and rewards? And in regards to the time savers themselves, I'm not really sure. Usually when a company adds things like time savers to a game where you can buy in-game money or XP, it's because they've made the in-game grind so bad that you'll consider the purchase. Assassin's Creed actually did this and had to tone down the grind after being called out on it. That's an example of microtransactions actually affecting the game's development development and balance in a negative way, but I have to be honest, I haven't actually felt underpowered or like I would need them in Tales of Arise, so I don't know, perhaps they did balance the game properly and then at the very last minute just decided to add some genuine time savers. I really don't know, but my overall message to developers and publishers would just be focus on creating a good game, nothing more, nothing less. If it does well, then consider extra worthwhile content that you can charge for. That's really all I ask. But as I said, there's genuinely nothing else that I personally found to be bad in any way. Although I can only speak for myself and there may of course be some small things that may bother other people, but for me, I struggled to come up with anything. However, let's move on to the conclusion and recommendation section. I think Tales of Arise is an expertly crafted RPG with interesting characters, stunning visuals, fun combat, and a story that I personally loved from beginning to end. I don't think the Tales series has ever had the same market appeal as other RPGs like Final Fantasy, for example, but I truly think that this game may actually change that. Tales of Arise feels like the game that all the other Tales games wanted to be and have been leading up to, almost like its ultimate form, if you will. If the developers are able to keep up this level of quality going into the next game, then I can't wait to see what comes next. This question is probably going to seem a bit redundant at this point, but would I recommend this game? I would recommend this game to any fan of any RPG. If you've ever enjoyed any type of RPG, I'm talking turn-based, Souls-like, CRPG, ARPG, anything at all, I would wholeheartedly suggest this game to you. Will you enjoy it as much as I personally did? Well, I can't tell you that, we're all different, but I really do believe that the game's quality will speak for itself. Normally in my reviews, I try to recommend games based on different types of players and their viewpoints, but this is a rare case where I don't think I can do that. This game in my mind is an instant classic, and I think it's going to be well received in general by a lot of people. Obviously, if you've never been a fan of RPGs and you generally only play sports games, Call of Duty or Battle Royale stuff, this probably isn't for you, and I honestly mean no disrespect when I say that. You go ahead and you play what you enjoy. What I will say though is that if you're still not sure, you can pick up a demo and give it a try for yourself at no cost, which I really do suggest doing if you have any interest in this game whatsoever. And there you go, that's my review of Tales of Arise, an absolute gem of a game in my humble opinion. It's available right now for PS4, PS5, Xbox One, Xbox Series consoles, and PC. If you want to ask me anything about the game, feel free to use the comment section and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. If you enjoyed the video or found it useful, please consider subscribing to the channel for more content like this. We're so close to that 1,000 sub milestone, so every single one of you that subscribes makes a huge difference. If you want to support the channel even further, all the important links are in the video description down below, and once again a special thanks to Dave and John on Patreon for your continued support. But with all that said, thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.